again everyone, and welcome. My name is Carol Astbury, and today I'd like to talk to you about choosing your wedding party. This is quite a decision, of course, that you have to make, choosing people that will be spending a lot of time with you, both before the ceremony, during the ceremony, and of course at the reception as well. So it's very important that you're very careful about who you choose. You can also tread on people's toes, of course, a little bit here, so one has to be very careful about how you invite people to become a member of your wedding party. There's always going to be somebody who's going to be disappointed, I guess, because the numbers that you choose will be limited. Some people like to have just a couple of witnesses act as their best man and bridesmaid or matron of honour if the female witness happens to be previously married, and others choose quite a lot of people in their wedding party. I think the most I've ever experienced as a celebrant was where we had 12 people, so that was 6 acting on behalf of the bridegroom and 6 for the bride, and on top of that we had a couple of little toddlers, one little fella who was carrying the rings and a little girl who was sprinkling petals as the bride arrived, a little flower girl. Actually, there's a funny story with the little boy with the rings, because at the rehearsal I think he was only about 2.5 or maybe 3, and his mum was one of the bridesmaids. So at the rehearsal he walked with his mother and carried a little cushion down to where the bridegroom was already standing, so he came early to stand with the guys and did it very well indeed, and was looking charming on the rehearsal. But when it came to the wedding day, he was walking a little bit downhill to get to the wedding party, and suddenly it dawned on him, I think, that there were like over 100 people waiting to watch the marriage take place, and he suddenly turned around and bolted back up the hill, running like crazy with the cushion with the rings tied on and the rings swinging and dangling underneath. So it all ended up happily because he was coaxed back by his dad, so it went okay. But anyway, choose your bridal attendants very carefully. They should be people that you can rely on, okay? They're going to have to be dependable, supportive, easy to get along with, because you all know that the marriage can become stressful, and we also want them to be able to be willing to help you, so available to help you as much as possible. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story about how bridal attendants got their names. So in ancient times we had a form of marriage which was called marriage by capture. Doesn't sound too thrilling, does it? So the bridegroom, being a young nobleman perhaps, would espy a beautiful young maiden in the village and decide that he would have her as his wife. Well, back in those days there wasn't a lot of bargaining going on, and so the bride the bride-to-be, that is, would actually be captured by the groom's family, stolen away, kidnapped in fact. The bridesmaids were the ladies who kept her safe during this time of imprisonment almost. She would be kept safe and looked after by ladies who they called the bridesmaids, so they weren't exactly her best buddies. They made sure that no man came anywhere near her, because of course her virginity was being treasured. In the meantime, the groom and his men would take off and have some wonderful time in a forest chasing deers or whatever, and celebrating with the killing of a stag or something like that. Now the best man, who traditionally stands on the right hand side of the groom, does so because in this time of marriage by capture, the best man was actually the best swordsman, and he was there to protect the groom just in case the bride's family got an inkling of what was going on and decided to come in hot pursuit to find the bride. The groom's men, of course, were usually his servants, and so there you have your wedding party. You've got the bridegroom his best man, who was the swordsman, and his men. We also then have the bridesmaids, who of course weren't terribly pally with the bride. They were keeping her safe though. And on the day of the marriage, the bride would be brought in by the groom's family, not by the bride's family, until after the marriage was actually took place, and then the bride and the bridegroom were off for their little celebration, and of course it was all over by the time the bride's family probably caught up. The bride, in fact, had been deflowered by the groom, and so what else are they going to do but probably come along and join in the celebration? It was too late to have their daughter back. So there you go. That's a funny story about what used to happen in times gone by, but does give you an indication of how we got these names for our bridal party. So choose wisely, choose carefully, make sure those people are going to be supportive. You'll find some articles about this on Wedding Plans Guide, and there what we try to do is give you a step-by-step guide in how to make all your selections, and what the duties of your bridal party might be, just some ideas for you. Okay, so that's signing off from me today, and have a great time choosing your witnesses, your bridal party, and for now, happy celebrating.